I have amazing news to share before we get into the live discussion with Debbie Silverman, who I'm very happy to have. But before we get into my discussion with Debbie, I just am very happy to say I got my first vaccination today. And exactly, I'm so happy. I've been so worried every single time I go in a residence or go into a hospital, go into a family's home. I'm very conscientious, but I'm always, concerned that I'm bringing something into the home or into the residence or bringing something back to my home. Anyways, it feels really good. It's funny, I got it at like 9 a.m. and my arm is already sore. It's funny what sticking a little needle in your arm can do. Anyway, today we're not talking about a fun topic like vaccines being rolled out. Oh, you want to turn that off, Debbie?
Yep, that's what I'm doing.
Yep,
Sorry.
that's okay, no problem. Uh, Today, we're going to be talking about something that is very disturbing for a lot of people, and probably a lot of people who are listening and watching have experienced this. I haven't experienced it personally because I've been aware and have been able to stop it, but I know my grandma experienced this. I don't know, maybe 2 years ago, she got a phone call from Microsoft Word about some software updates and problems, and they had her on the phone for well over an hour. Of course, they were asking her personal information. Once they started getting to the personal information and credit cards and these kinds of things, my grandma thankfully stopped and she hung up and she called my uncle, her son, who said, "No way, don't give anything." So luckily we were able to kind of shut that down. And I certainly know for myself, I'll get texts, click on this link, or, oh, it's, the IRS calling, or they'll, oh, it's TD Bank, your account is overdrawn, click on the link, and I don't even have an account there, and I get
Right.
this stuff all the time. But for seniors who are vulnerable and frail, I mean, these situations are very scary. And it's more than just that phone call for the financial exploitation. There are other ways that seniors can be abused financially. I've worked with a family where a guy was repeatedly coming to the home of a woman who somehow he knew had dementia, and he got her to buy a new roof like 5 times,
Mm.
had her getting in the car with him. He was driving to the bank. I mean, these are some really scary situations, and unfortunately, a high percentage of the files in which there are crisis and financial abuse in my practice, I find are from family members even taking advantage of someone financially, going into the bank and these kinds of things. So frauds, scams towards the elderly are very scary. They're concerning. And today we're going to talk to someone who had a personal experience in her family, which prompted her to write a book and fight fiercely for those who are being taken advantage of in this way. Welcome, Debbie Silverman. I want to just introduce you a bit. She is an international speaker, a two-time Effie Award winner for marketing excellence. I'm sorry, I don't know what an Effie Award is. Clearly, it's about marketing. And a human behavior specialist and a conversation expert. Ooh, I like that. She's also certified in neurolinguistic programming, which, by the way, I absolutely love. She's also the creator and co-author of the #1 bestseller, It's Just a Conversation, What to Say and How to Say It in Business, and the newly released book, Protecting the Rabbit Ears Generation, which is what we'll be talking about today, is that book. So I was looking in prepping for this, Debbie, I was looking at some stats, and I saw more than 1 in 10 elderly people in the US fall victim to elder fraud. Average loss per case is over $17,000, and only about 1 in 23.5 cases are reported. And in
Sure.
Canada, about 10% of seniors are victims of abuse. 10%, 1 in 10. So we're talking the same stats in both countries. And I know this happened to your aunt. So tell me a bit about what happened to your aunt, Debbie, and what prompted you to take up this fight.
First of all, Stephanie, thank you so much for having me on your show. I really appreciate it. It's so important that we get this word out. So what happened with my aunt, she was 93, lived alone, very, very knowledgeable and really independent, so she could do things on her own. She did not have any, excuse me, modern technology. She didn't have a cell phone. She didn't have a computer. She didn't have a microwave. She had an old TV with rabbit ears, hence the name Protecting the Rabbit Ears Generation. So for those viewers and listeners that don't know what rabbit ears are, it's the antenna on the TV, the older TVs.
Yeah.
And so What happened was she was in and out of the hospital. She wasn't well. It was sort of the last few weeks of her life. And I was in the hospital with her friend and myself and my mom. And we were paying bills and stuff. And we called the bank to see if everything was okay. And they gave us the balance. They gave her the balance. And she said, yes, that's correct. We were fine. And I was POA on her checking account. She made me POA.
That means power of attorney for
Power
anyone
of
who
attorney,
doesn't know.
yes.
And a power of attorney has the legal authority to manage money on someone's behalf.
That's right. That's correct. And so I became POA on her checking account. And I was in the bank one day and I was looking at her statement and it said online transfer for a ridiculous amount of money, like $50,000. And I said to her, I said to the bank, did she call and say, move the funds from my savings to my checking? And they said, no, she did an online transfer. And I said, that's impossible. And they were like, why? I'm like, because she doesn't have she doesn't have a cell phone. She doesn't have an iPad. She doesn't have any kind of modern technology that she could possibly make an online transfer. And they said, well, she did. And they argued with me, of course. So what happened was, we found out later that she lived in an apartment house, and the tenant above her boyfriend, was able to get a hold of my aunt's bank statements. And he was moving funds from her savings to her checking so that when she checked her checking account amount, it seemed right. And what he also was able to do was get copies of her checks. And he was writing checks, supposedly signing her name, for also crazy amounts of money, 30,000 here, 50,000 here, 10,000, 12,000, whatever it was, writing down for cash. The bank never notified my aunt. Nothing ever happened. I saw it because I looked through the statements and I was like, what's going on here? And what happened was the tenant above my aunt was stealing from her, as I said. And I was in my aunt's apartment one day cleaning up, and the tenants had to go past my aunt's apartment to see what was to get to their apartment. So I opened the front door and I said, oh, hi, I'm Debbie. I want to meet you. And my mom also wants to know who's living here because she's part owner of the building. So I want to get a picture of you because the detective had said to me, do you know this name? And it vaguely sounded familiar. And I took a picture of the tenant and her boyfriend, and I sent it to the detective. So this is very, very, very helpful. It turned out they were able to match his photo that I sent with the bank videos.
Wow.
And so, very long story short, I just want to let your viewers know that when you have two accounts, with the same bank, please, 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 I'm begging you, make sure you look at your savings account statement as well as your checking account statement. Because most of us, and I know I was guilty of that for a while, we look at just our checking account because that's the most active, generally speaking, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't look at your savings, somebody may have gotten into your account. There may be fraud going on, and you can lose your life savings.
That's so scary. And, it's sad to me because your aunt, obviously was very vulnerable, at risk. And these two individuals came in, and when I was reading your book, I saw they were younger, and they came in and they took advantage of her. What do you think it is in doing your research? Because I know for your book is filled with stories of the different scenarios of the different types of fraud that can occur, and we'll get through some of them, and the interviews that you did with people and actual personal stories of how this fraud was committed. In all of those stories, Debbie, what do you find is the common theme that makes a senior so vulnerable? What is it? Why are they preyed after? I mean, obviously they're vulnerable, but is there a type of a personality or situation that makes someone more vulnerable than someone else?
It's a matter of being lonely. It's loneliness. It's a matter of wanting to be helpful to somebody, especially in cases there are different kinds of scams. There's one scam that I wrote about in the book called the grandma scam.
Yeah.
And that one is basically you get a phone call and you hear a child yelling or screaming in the background, grandma, help me, help me, help me. And because the grandmother is so upset, we'll say the grandchild's name or we'll say a name. And then they pick up on it right away. Oh, yes, grandma, it's Debbie. Please help me, help me. And then this guy will get on the phone with a foreign accent and he'll say something like, your granddaughter was in an accident, or she was in trouble in jail, whatever it might be. And the only way we can help her is if you send a gift card worth a couple $1,000. And you can go to this store to get the gift cards, get them in the amounts of $500 each or whatever it might be. And once you get the gift cards, we'll call you back and then you give us the code number on the gift card,
Okay.
and we will release your grandchild, or we will help your grandchild get back to wherever, out of the hospital or whatever, or out of the jail, whatever it might be. And one of the key stories, a lot of these stories that I wrote about in the book, not only are the grandparents lonely, they want to be the hero of the family. And so when the grandchild, supposed grandchild, is yelling, help me, and all this stuff, they want to be the hero. And of course, the guy gets on the phone and says, do not tell the parents. Do not tell her parents. Because again, the grandparent wants to be the hero, wants to be the one who saved the day, if you will.
Well, and also there's an implied threat there, right? And in any abuse, any perpetrator victim situation, there's this implied threat. I mean, a lot of, children that are abused, the perpetrator never even said, don't tell your mom, don't tell your dad, whatever it might be. But there's an implied threat of something bad is going to happen to you or to your family members if you reveal this secret. And I think that's in terms of, when we're talking about why seniors, why are they so vulnerable? One of the things that I find is that there's also a level of shame and embarrassment when someone is being taken advantage of and they recognize they're being taken advantage of, and they're ashamed or embarrassed to even bring it up. And the other piece, when I'm talking about the perpetrator victim, is that there is sometimes a dependency. So someone may be very well aware that they're being, frauded out of money, taken advantage of financially, but they don't say anything because they're dependent on this person. If without this person, they maybe couldn't live at home, or they wouldn't get rides to a place, or whatever that relationship might be. And so there's like a lot of different layers of vulnerability to seniors and to why they are, a prime victim for perpetrators.
And sometimes it's with the family,
Yes.
Sometimes it's the family scamming the person or frauding the person, and you trust the person, and then all of a sudden you find out, oh no, what happened here? And again, there's an embarrassment factor, there's the victim factor. There are a lot of different reasons why they don't come forth and report it.
Exactly. So let's, I just realized I see this thing, and I wish I would have realized before we started, the LinkedIn, it's not going live on LinkedIn. That's too bad, because that's always where I get the most interaction. But anyways, I'll post the video up after, and I'm sorry, I just realized that it didn't go live on LinkedIn. Anyway, things happen. So let's talk about some of the other common scams. We've talked about the grandparent scam. We've talked about the nice neighbor. What about those contest lottery scams? Tell me about those.
And they're very popular, especially now with what is it? Publishers Clearinghouse, which is happening, I think, at the end of around the end of February, I think it happens. First of all, Publishers Clearinghouse will never call you. None of these companies will never call you, especially Publishers Clearinghouse. They will show up at your door, like the commercial shows you. That's how they operate. That's what they do. So if you get a call that says you won the lottery, you won Publishers Clearinghouse, and you won $3 million, and the only way you can collect your $3 million is if you send us money to pay for the taxes.
Or if you give us your social insurance number, your social security number, therefore we can make a deposit, or your banking routing number, and we could just make the deposit directly in. That's got to perk up some ears too, huh?
That's right. And they'll ask for, make it like as easy for you as possible to say you won the money and we want to get it to you and we're so excited for you. And of course you get kind of carried away with the emotion and the excitement, and you want, oh, I'm a winner. One of the stories in my book, this woman, all her life, said to her children, I'm going to win the Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes. I'm going to win it. I just know I'm going to win it. And sure enough, she got the phone call from the scammer saying that she won. And she was so excited that she won that she did not tell her children. She sent the money to pay for the taxes and then realized that it was a scam. It's horrible. It's horrible what goes on in these people's minds and these scammers.
It really is. And I mean, even for myself, I can get caught up. There was recently something that I saw, I think it was on Facebook, that kept coming around, and there's all these celebrities, and they're like, oh, if you tell me what number is written in this. You remember those things that you used to look at where it had all of these numbers, but then there'd be an image in between, or not numbers,
Yes.
but like little
You have
dots,
to
and there's
see
an
the
image.
image. Yes.
Yeah, I can't remember. So there's this thing that's online right now, and it's a celebrity live saying, find it, put your name in, and then you're going to win money. And so it's interesting. But then if you put your name in and then you win, then they're saying, okay, well, now give us your credit card. But I'm thinking, is this a real scam for the money, or is it a scam to just get contact information to then, spam people with a bunch of stuff? Because how did they get all these celebrities involved for this scam? Like, I mean, the lengths that people are going to try and take advantage of people is crazy.
I think to answer your question, it's both.
Hmm.
I think it's both. I think, yes, they're looking for the database. They want to collect their database so they can send you ads for other things, and they sell those databases. They sell them and they make money with the companies. And as far as the celebrities go, sometimes the celebrities don't even know they're in the commercial, or they're in that scam. Sometimes they don't know.
Oh no,
And
they're talking about it. They're actually talking about the game, whatever it is,
okay.
as it's happening. So clearly they were paid for some endorsement. So I mean, that's talk about your multi-level type of scams. But let's get back to the seniors and the fraud stuff. One other story that you mention in your book is like the "Can I carry your bag" type of scamming situation. And I know, I mean, I've had lots of people stop me in the parking lot and ask me if I wanted help, or if I could help them. And I certainly know how to, look out for that, which also makes me kind of sad because I do like to help people too. So maybe I'm like ignoring and rejecting people who actually really do have good intentions and who really do want to help. It kind of makes us afraid of the world. But what can happen for an elderly person with this "Can I carry your bag" type of scam?
That happened to a very close family friend. She's got magnificent silver hair, very frail looking, very frail looking. I mean, look, a strong wind could blow her over. And she parked her car one day, and she got out and she got her walker and she went into the supermarket. And when she came out, there was a young woman who offered to help her with her packages and put them in the trunk. And she said, I got it. Thank you. I'm good. Thank you very much. And then as she was starting to put things in the trunk, there was a gentleman on the other side of the car that said, oh, let me help you. Let me help you. Now, my family friend, her name is Selma. Selma, kind of old school, and will take a man's help over a woman's help for some crazy reason. And she allowed him to help her with her packages and put them in the trunk. And she thanked them, and they went on their way, and everything was fine. She thought. She got home to her gated community. She got out of her car. The gentleman was standing there waiting for her when she got out of her car.
That is so scary.
Totally freaked her out. Very scary. And he said, let me help you with your packages, and let me hold your purse so that you can get out of the car and get your walker and everything else. I'm fine. I'm fine. Thank you anyway, but I'm fine. Like, where'd you come from? Now, it's possible he lived in the same gated community. It's possible that it was completely innocent. It is possible. However, when he asked to carry or hold her purse, she was like, no. Thank you anyway. He helped her, I guess, with a few packages, and she took just a few packages out of the trunk. She went into the laundry room because she didn't want to have him see where she lives. And she waited for him to leave. And once he left, then she was able to come out and get the rest of her packages.
Very smart.
Never, ever give your purse to anybody.
Of course not. My kids take it. I don't give it to them. They just take it.
Well, that's different.
That's a different kind of fraud. No.
Right.
Well, your friend is very smart, first of all, and very aware, which is nice to hear. And it's just it's very scary because when you talk about, she's using a walker, and so she's, some limitations with her mobility. And so it's not even just that financial fraud or that scamming that can occur. It's the physical danger as well. She could be knocked on the head and things stolen from her. I mean, that can happen to anybody at any age. So as we're moving on, talk to me a bit about what do you suggest that people do? Because I know that you've heard lots of stories about
Yeah.
how people respond. If you think if an elderly person thinks they're being scammed or frauded, or a family member discovers it, is the first step you go to the police? Do you confront the alleged person who's victimizing? Like, what do you do?
Well, it depends on what's going on. It depends what's going on. If it's a telephone scam and they're asking for gift cards, first of all, what I would recommend to most people is let the phone call that you don't recognize go to your voicemail. Go to voicemail. You don't have to answer every call. It's okay. And if it's that important, they'll call back.
Yeah.
So that way you at least know who's on the other end of the phone. All right. All right. So say you do answer the phone, and then what do? If they start talking about something happened to somebody you love and they make it seem very real, when you get off the phone, do not go past go. Do not collect your $200. If you remember Monopoly, go directly to the person who they're talking about. Like if they said your grandson, your granddaughter, whatever it is in trouble, you call that person. You call the parents. Do not say, I'll be the hero and protect them. All right? Because 99.999% of the time, it is fraud. It's a scam. And so make sure, that's all. Make sure the person's okay. They're not in the hospital. They're not in an accident, whatever it might be. Call the parents and say, I just got this phone call. I'm very upset. What should I do? And they'll tell you also, it's fine. He's fine or she's fine.
Yeah.
Number one. Yes, go to the police, report the case if you can. However, I got to tell you, and this upsets me terribly, is that unless you actually show up at the police station and you fill out all the paperwork, nothing's going to happen, which is unfortunate. Nothing is going to really happen because it happens so often and so many times throughout the country and throughout the day that they can't possibly handle all of these. They can't.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's true. And the police are obviously looking at other types of crimes as well. But I find that when families go directly to the financial institutions, there tends to be a bit better movement because the institution doesn't want to be liable as well. And they want to make sure that further fraud doesn't occur that they may be responsible for if they didn't have all the measures in place. And sometimes then you can kind of get the evidence and then go to the police and you have a bit more, I guess, direction. Do you find that to be this?
Again, it depends on the scam, Stephanie, because with my aunt, I had the police report, I had all the paperwork, I had copies of the checks, I had everything. And when I went to the bank, they denied the case 3 times. I went up the corporate ladder, they denied the case 3 times. I finally got an attorney. Once I got the attorney involved, then we were able to get some kind of money from the bank. And I asked them, how could you let this happen with a 93-year-old woman, this amount of money in cash, written out to cash, and you don't call her and question it and say, is everything okay? Oh, well, she didn't have the right account. You need private banking for that account. I'm like, are you serious? I mean, what? So I don't know if I agree with that. Go to the bank. Yes, maybe now they're better trained. I don't know.
How long ago was that, Debbie?
I'm sorry?
How long ago was that for your aunt?
This happened in 2016.
Okay, so it's not that long ago. I don't know if they're better trained now, but no. I see what you're saying is that you may not always get the assistance that you need in whatever direction you go. So then if we don't want to then be reacting because something happened. So let's talk about more proactively what we can kind of do to protect that population. One of the things that you talked about was having some cameras around the home so you can watch the comings and goings, which you were very clever to take a picture, and that picture helped, and the bank had footage, so that helped to match. But we can obviously have that kind of camera system. I don't know, I'm losing my train of thought. Surveillance system at home as well, so you can be watching things. Caveat before we get into talking about that, we always have to think about privacy and confidentiality, and I never recommend that you install cameras and things like that in anybody's home without their full knowledge and permission. Even if you're a well-intended adult child who wants to help their parents, it is a violation of privacy. So have the discussion. Okay, that's the social worker.
You have to have that conversation. Absolutely.
That's the social worker coming out. But do you suggest that, like, a lot of people have these surveillance systems in place?
I suggest that if the person lives alone, yes, get something in place. It'll also help medically, because if something happens to them, you'll know, and you'll be able to, if they don't
Yeah.
have one of those buzzer, beepers that are, or things that they wear around their neck to get help, that might help you as well. And, of course, you have to have a trusted family member or friend that is reliable enough that can view the videos and not steal from you and not know
Yeah.
what, right? I know it's a lot to take in. It is. In addition to the surveillance stuff that you can do, it's very important to have, like for the grandmother scam with your grandkids, have a code name, a code word.
Ooh, like a
So
safe
that,
word, but in not the fun way.
well, yeah, so like, the cat's out of the bag, or some crazy phrase that you would only say if you were really in trouble, and not just this random stuff that's going on. If you were really in trouble and you heard your granddaughter say to you, the cat's out of the bag, then she's in trouble. Or I'm just
Right.
making that up as a phrase, but I'm just saying, come up with something that only you and your family know what it means.
Or I guess even if you don't have the time to do that and this happens tonight, you can always ask that family member, if it's the grandmother scam, like, okay, I want to help you. Tell me what your brother's middle name is, or
Yeah,
something like
yeah,
that.
that's what
You know,
that's the code. Exactly.
the
That's
code.
the same kind of
Yeah.
thing. Right, right.
And I think for me, one of the most important things that people should be doing is getting their power of attorneys in place, so that you have the legal authority, like you did, to even have access to start looking at the bank accounts and the savings and the checkings. Because had you not had access and seen that, you wouldn't have known any of
No.
this. You wouldn't have known that your aunt was being frauded. So certainly, I'm sure you encourage people to put your wishes in writing and to get that power of attorney, someone that you trust.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And tell everybody what your plans are. Tell people, Debbie has power of attorney. This one has that access. Tell people so they know, and they can be prepared if, God forbid, something happens.
Yeah, and for families where there's trust lacking and they're not maybe sure who to choose, you can also always choose multiple people, so there's like oversight and checks and balances. So, maybe I'm going to choose my daughter, and then I'm also going to choose my best friend. You know what I mean? Like
You
two
can also use an
options.
attorney for that too. You can
Yeah,
also use an attorney, and that person legally is bound to help you and be protective of you, and so on. So
yeah.
that's another option.
The one other thing I wanted to talk about, which I didn't realize until I read your book, is that there are apps for telemarketers that identify these spam calls or something, right? Weren't you saying something like that in your book?
Yes, and there are a lot of different apps out now that maybe even your cell phone can offer you, or your carrier can offer you, where it'll come up, it says spam call, or do not take the call, do not accept the call. There are little ways that they have come up with to tell you that it's just not a good call for you to answer.
Oh, that's great for your cell phone. So, Debbie, your book is called Protecting the Rabbit Ears Generation. Did I say that correctly? Yes,
You
Protecting the
did it. I'm
Rabbit.
going to hold it up.
There you go. Good. Here, let's be book twins. And here's mine, Plan for Aging Well. Wait, there.
Okay.
Um, so, Debbie, where can people find your book? Is it on? It's on Amazon.
It's on Amazon, and it's on Kindle. You can get a Kindle version as well. Or if you want to contact me, you'll get a special version because I'll sign it for you. You'll get a special box and gift. And it's really, I think it's worth having the hard copy, and having the extra things. And plus, once you contact me, if you have any questions, if you need a consultation or something, I'll be happy to give your listeners a free consultation on how to help their loved ones.
That's nice. Thank you, Debbie. And the thing that I really enjoyed about the book is it's a very easy read. And I know that's something that I really strived for, as I had heavy topics too. And I was really trying to make it conversational. And I found that your book was like that. And because it was not just like technical aspects of scams, it was storytelling, the real stories of what the scam can look like in real life. I found it to be very helpful and very easy to digest and understand quickly. So I definitely recommend it. I think it was great.
Thank you. And the reason why I did the stories is because people will remember stories. They don't remember if you just tell them the bad news. So they
Absolutely.
have to hear it in a real story. And
That's
if
right.
I may, so if people want to get in touch with me to order my book, it's Rabbit Ears Book, Rabbit Ears, EARS, book, BOOK, at gmail.com.
So why don't you, Debbie, send me whatever links that you want, like the link to Amazon maybe, and this email that you're telling me about, and I'll put it in the comment section of all the channels that I post this on so that people can have the information and just click on the link and get a hold of you.
Okay, very good. I appreciate that. And also, I just want to add one thing, Stephanie. I have a book trailer that I did that
Oh,
talks
yeah,
about
yeah,
some of the scams, and it shows you. And I also have a wonderful production that was professionally done of the grandmother scam, which takes you through that story too. So I will send you those links. So maybe you wouldn't mind posting those together, and maybe people will have a little more information than just our conversation today.
Excellent. Excellent. So thank you very much, Debbie. I appreciate all your time and your presence and your insight and the stories. And hang on, I'm going to end the broadcast, but hang on for just a second.
Okay.
Okay.